So, this recording is about the power of naming. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from Mary Daly's book Beyond God the Father starting on page 7, and then we're going to move over to page 8. But some of you may know I have faced some criticism about my usage of words such as the firebrand feministry or using Mary Daly disciple, and my belief in the Holy Spirit, and just some other things in the ways I use words. And I just want to address that in this recording so that I inspire other women to practice Whitcraft wordsmithing and to imagine and to be more of a visionary, and really not worry too much about the attacks that you are most assuredly going to get online. And it might be discouraging at first because you might feel like people aren't listening to you. You might feel like that Cassandra, the unheard prophetess Mary Daly talked about. But hopefully this recording will help you a little bit. So first I'm going to start by reading something very powerful that she states on page 7. Now I'm not sure how to pronounce this woman's name. I'm going to play it here on YouTube. Let's see here. Simone de Beauvoir. I think that's how you say it, but let's see.
Simone de Beauvoir, French. Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir, French.
Simone de Beauvoir. Okay. So as Simone de Beauvoir says, Simone de Beauvoir sadly notes, women who have perceived the reality of sexual oppression usually have exhausted themselves in breaking through to discovery of their own humanity, with little energy left for constructing their own interpretation of the universe. Therefore, the various ideological constructs cannot be imagined to reflect a balanced or adequate vision. Instead, they distort reality and destroy human potential, female and male. What is required of women at this point in history is a firm and deep refusal to limit our perspective, questioning, and creativity to any of the preconceived patterns of male-dominated culture. When the positive products of our emerging awareness and creativity express dimensions of the search for ultimate meaning, they can indeed be called both philosophical and theological, but in the sense of pointing beyond the God of patriarchal philosophy and religion. And that is exactly what I am trying to design, in the sense that I'm a visionary. I have a vision, and it's helping me in my process of liberation. And it's unfortunately been trampled on by other feminists who do not understand me. And quite honestly, probably don't understand Mary Daly either. They often will use the defense of this quote by Audre Lorde. She says, "The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." And they use this quote, more often than not, to try to silence you from using the power of naming and being a visionary and using these words that were once patriarchal to go beyond the God of the patriarchal philosophy and religion, to reclaim it for ourselves. So with that said, I'm going to go on to page 8. There's a lot of good stuff in this that's important, that explains why I do what I do with language and with the House of the Dove and the Firebrand Feministry and even this group, Mary Daly Disciples. She says, "The method that is required is not one of correlation, but of liberation. Even the term method must be reinterpreted and in fact wrenched out of its usual semantic field, for the emerging creativity in women is by no means a merely cerebral process. In order to understand the implications of this process, it is necessary to grasp the fundamental fact that women have had the power of naming stolen from us. We have not been free to use our own power to name ourselves, the world, or God. The old naming was not the product of dialogue, a fact inadvertently admitted in the Genesis story of Adam's naming the animals and the women, women are now realizing that the universal imposing of names by men has been false because partial. That is, inadequate words have been taken as adequate. In this respect, though with a different slant, the new woman consciousness is in accord with the view of Josiah Royce that it is impossible to consider any term apart from its relation to the whole. Now, let's put a special emphasis on this part. She says, to exist humanly is to name the self, the world, and God. The method of the evolving spiritual consciousness of women is nothing less than this beginning to speak humanly, a reclaiming of the right to name. The liberation of language is rooted in the liberation of ourselves. It would be a mistake to imagine that the new speech of women can be equated simply with women speaking men's words. What is happening is that women are really hearing ourselves and each other, and out of this supportive hearing emerge new words. Now that, she says, this is not to say necessarily that an entirely different set of words is coming into being full-blown in a material sense. We're not inventing an actual new language, although you could do that if you wanted to. But like the use of, instead of saying ministry like men have, it's the feministry. It's the consciousness raising of women's liberation. That's how I view it. Anyway, it goes on to say, that is different sounds or combinations of letters on paper. Rather, words, which materially speaking are identical with the old, become new in a semantic context that arises from qualitatively new experience. The word Exodus, as applied to the community of women that is now emerging, exemplifies this phenomenon. Because obviously we're leaving patriarchy. The word's meaning is stripped of its patriarchal biblical context, while at the same time speaking to and beyond that context. So also the word sisterhood no longer means a subordinate mini brotherhood, but an authentic bonding of women on a wide scale for our own liberation.